And you've just heard Acting, taken from Beerjacket's new album, Handstands. And I'm delighted to be joined now by Beerjacket himself, also known as Peter Kelly. Hello, Peter.
How are you doing? You all right?
I'm very well. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
So what can you tell us about Handstands?
Well, the record took about maybe a year, which is sort of behind the scenes. It's actually an irrelevance, isn't it? You know, nobody really cares about how long you took spending to write something anymore, especially because it tends to last a lot longer once it comes out. But I spent about a year, and the writing was dead straightforward, really quick, and the process of sort of, you know, the minutiae of actually learning to make something sound good was the thing that took the longest, because I've always seen it as a wee bit of a kind of magical art, and it's not. When you're recording things, if there's a magical art, it's probably closer to the first stage, you know, where you're actually coming up with an idea, or an idea's kind of appearing or whatever. But everything else is sort of, it's the kind of hobbyist or nerdy sort of territory of like just doing a lot of reading and watching a lot of YouTube videos about how to do the kind of technical stuff. And I've always sort of just thought like I kind of thought I couldn't really do it properly, and I've evidenced that through recording stuff really badly in the past. But this time I just found it really rewarding to kind of go through the process of seeing how I could get from here to there with, you know, the kind of, you know, the creation of a final thing, not just creating a song and then taking it to somebody else. So that was quite that was a good part of all of this.
So you've produced the whole of this album, and previously you've had someone else do it, is that right?
Well, most of the time, for the past, like for about 10 years, I was always going to work with Stuart McLeod, who obviously has done brilliant records with me in the past and stuff. And I think I've maybe missed a trick when all those times that we've been sitting together and he's been, you know, doing these things that I didn't fully understand. Like I could have had a great opportunity to learn from, because he knows better than most people how to record. So it's a shame that it kind of took me till I was sort of stuck in the house and couldn't do, you know, the same sort of dependence sort of act of going to somebody who already knows and getting them to do it. You know, that I had to learn it all myself. But I mean, I made a record last year that I really hate, and I know it's bad, and I know that the production's probably the worst part about it. So that as well was good, because I had a yardstick of something I really, really detested that I did last. And that's I think how you kind of keep yourself fresh as well, is like, you should probably sort of hate, or at least, you know, be able to critique what you did last to move on. And so I really hate that one. And so this means this is a great success that I've got one that I still like, you know.
That's a real critique when you're going as strong as that.
Oh, I hate it.
But
I couldn't listen to it. There's no way.
It's really interesting you saying that, because been listening to your album quite a lot over the last few days, and to me it's almost the distilled essence of Beerjacket. You know, I mean, they're all one-word song titles. They're all round about the 3-minute mark, roughly. You know, there's a few under, and it just seems to me that this is almost a kind of the classic Beerjacket album. If someone came along to me and said, you know, oh, Beerjacket, what does that sound like? There you go, Handstands.
Oh, well, that's really nice, actually. That's an incredibly nice thing to say, because, I mean, I think it would be arrogant for a start to think that you're capable of distilling everything that you want to do and what you're doing right now, or whatever, but also to imagine that there even is a perfect version of what you do is sort of, it would be arrogant coming from the point of view of the person who does it. Do you know what I mean? But it's very nice if, you know, you're saying that, you know, that's the way that it sort of appears to you. That matters. That's nice.
Well, having known your stuff over the years, like, I mean, of course, you're the kind of person to always go away and think, well, I would maybe do that better, or I would, you know, as you say, self-critiquing. But I just...
Or I would not do that.
Or I would, yeah, exactly. But from the point of view of a listener who knows your work well, you kind of go, yeah, this is, you know, this is Beerjacket. And that's, you know, that's what it would have been called. This is Beerjacket. I just really think that the songs are like that. And then even down to the things like having the one, you know, the single word titles and things like that. I mean, did that just come about that that's the way it was, or is there more to it?
There's actually, well, I'm laughing as well, especially because I've got the list of the next songs in front of me on a whiteboard, and they're all but one word titles as well. It's always been a thing that I've done. I say always, for most of the time since about 2009. I realise that rhymed. That's just been a thing that I found myself doing, and I've only maybe over the past few years started to realise probably part of the reason is down to the writing process, where for me a lot of the time, and this is hardly like a one-off, it's not like the only person who's ever said this, but it'll start often with a word for me, you know, and that's sort of a thing that I'll pull at once I've got that one word, you know, and I start to figure out, you know, what it makes me feel, what makes me think of, how it connects to things that are relevant to me, not necessarily their personal songs, but things that maybe just kind of chime with parts of my life or my experience, what I see, what I think about, and so that tends to be why I think. But also there is a sort of I love Prince, right, and I love how Prince's records, I can't remember exactly the time, they all lasted for a time anyway, for a period in his career, they all lasted exactly the same length. And I can't remember exactly what that length is, but there is a whole series of records that are exactly the same length. And I just think that's that sort of control over something you're creating, whether it is limiting it to a particular time or limiting it to a particular word, or, you know, a whole album full of one-word titles. I just think I think it's funny that, you know, in a creative process, which is sort of chaotic, no matter how much you try to order it, it's just funny that you would impose those sorts of things on yourself. And it does create inspiration for me. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure eventually I would run out of single word titles that I would actually want to use. You know, not every word's appropriate for a song. You know?
That is true. But I think that's the part of the thing I was getting at, because it's like you've got title of the song, but it's the word itself, and then you are kind of unpicking thoughts or using that to kind of inspire what you then go on to write about. It feels to me, having done a little bit of been involved in the world of books and things, like a writing exercise almost. When someone says, here's muscle, go and write a song about muscle, or go and write a poem about muscle, or something like that. And it seems like there's a bit of that going on with yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, well, you know as well that books in particular, but like kind of all like anything to do with words, literature is so much of the thing that sort of, it does spark not just inspiration for me, but it's sort of, it's kind of, that's sort of my life spark, to be honest. You know, I've always been attracted to words, and I've always thought a lot about the words that I write. And I say always, obviously I've got embarrassing stuff from when I was a teenager or whatever, like everybody else does, but I would say particularly over the past, I don't know, 10, 12 years, I've been more and more proud of lyrics because I've given them more of a place. And I don't see them as being, I do think of them as being musical to an extent, so that I allow certain lines or whole songs sometimes to be a wee bit, sort of a wee bit amorphous and can take different shapes if you look different ways at them and things. But I don't always think about words as music. I do think about words in terms of what the overall composition of the thing is. You know?
I was going to ask you how you thought your songwriting has changed over the years, but I guess you've almost answered that yourself. You kind of, you know, I don't know if you think more about it, but you just improve on it, don't you? I mean, again, that's what you're always to do. You're always looking to make the next thing better, and it's why that idea of critiquing what's gone before becomes so important.
It is important. And I mean, even like probably the best record I've heard since the start of the year, and we're only on the 2nd of February, but so far the best record I've heard is that Elvis Costello record, which is astonishingly good. It's his 31st record. You know, I love things like that. I love, you know, when there's people that have got not only a longevity, which is in itself not necessarily a good thing, because some people should stop, but the idea that you know, that they could continue to kind of either impress and improve on what they've done, or else just sort of push in different directions like he's done, and then come full circle and like kind of make a record that sounds like one that he would have made in the 80s, you know. And obviously I know his career goes back further than that, but I prefer the stuff in the 80s. Blood and Chocolate is my favourite of his records, and this one's like, I would say it's maybe my second or third favourite Elvis Costello album, and it came out the other week. So good.
It's funny you should mention that. I was going through some CDs over Christmas, some boxes of stuff, and I came across quite a few Elvis Costello, and each one of them hugely different from the other. You know, you got your country western, you got your kind of post-punk stuff, but then you've got your own jazz stuff that he did with his wife, and also and the Brodsky Quartet, you know, classical stuff and everything. You think, wow, what a musician this is. And continuing to reinvent himself, and even going back and using his own past to go forward.
But I think like anybody creating anything has to be sort of restless and dissatisfied. You know what I mean? If you're not constantly going in different directions and trying things and putting yourself in awkward spots, maybe even if doing things that don't work, then you're almost certainly not inspired. You're almost certainly not gonna. You're stuck. You're going to be stuck. You're worse than stuck, actually, because if you start being happy with what you've done, you're smug as well, and that's a worse word than being stuck. You know, being smug. And I've never really. I've got no delusions and no pretensions about what I do. I know that within, within the realms that I'm in when I write songs, I know that there are certain things that are kind of not token or whatever or expected necessarily, but are sort of trademark, and that is a word that sometimes will be used in a not unkind way. You know, when somebody is saying like something has got the trademark of what somebody's done, I think that's special and that's important that you've got these kind of characteristics. Otherwise, you just are like a brill building songwriter. Although obviously a lot of great songs came from the brill building, but you know what I mean, like the idea that you're churning out things for some sort of pedestrian purpose of just reproducing the same idea. I'm not interested in that, but I'm interested in the idea that you would have, as with all like good art, that there would be like something distinguishing about what that person is bringing. It's the only concession I give myself. I don't write songs about myself. I would always try and, as I say, write about the word and what it triggers and what it makes me think of or whatever. So the one concession I allow is, well, I'm going to put some of those characteristics in that aren't mine, but they're things that have come out of what I've done. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I do. And it's that maybe the reason why you went for the name Beerjacket rather than under your own name, because often the songs you write are emotion, they deal with emotions, they deal with heartbreak or heartache or whatever it might be. And people could maybe think, oh, right, that's the songwriter is the song, as people often mistake.
Yeah.
Actually, by having the name, you think, oh no, these are Beerjacket songs.
Yeah, I know. And I think that's important, because actually you're less likely to hide things, or not hide things, less likely to kind of pre-plan what you're going to say or what you're going to, you know, how you're going to sing something or whatever, if you're not thinking, well, this is, I'm not interested in bearing my soul. Like, you know, I don't even really do that with like people close to me. I'm not one of these folks who's always looking for attention to my feelings or anything like that. I'm more interested generally in other people's feelings, so that's why I write about them, you know. And like if I'm writing something, it's really helpful in some ways if I know that this isn't something that directly connects to me, because then the ego is taken right out of it, and I'm not thinking ahead to whether or not there's a consequence to sharing things or whatever. There's by all means great songwriters who do that, but I think, you know, my sort of approach is much less about me, to be honest, and I'm glad that I never used my own name, because people wouldn't believe you if you said that and you were using your own name. You know, I've never wanted to be given any particular attention as a person. Like, my ideal when I'm playing is that the music's in the room and that we're contributing to it, you know, because if an audience is quiet for a start, which luckily these days they are when I play, you know, and I don't have to like play the kind of gigs where you're fighting with the bar and all that kind of stuff. I like to think that we're all in a situation. I don't like, it's this thing I miss actually, and I got to play a couple of gigs before things went weird again, and now I don't have any at the moment, but I'm playing in April, I think, a couple of times, but it's the atmosphere of people listening to a thing, and I'm listening to the thing. I just have to concentrate a wee bit more than the rest of the audience because I'm doing it, but everything else is totally about being in a room. That's the thing everybody's longing for, isn't it? And the thing that we'll always see is more special now because we've not had it.
And when you release a new album, as you have done with Handstands, and you don't have the ability to go out and play the songs immediately, is that painful for you? Because I know that you love to go out and do the live gigs as well with new material.
Painful's a bit strong because it's not. It's more weird. It's just weird. It's a little emptiness. Do you know what I mean? That you can't be in a room doing the thing with everybody that you know is part of it. You know, and I love. Do you know what I really like as well is that there are people that I've met who I didn't know otherwise, who I've met through them being repeated faces. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I still wouldn't like be able to say very much about them. I don't know them that well, so it's not like it's like the thing that is shared is irrelevant to the details about who we are, which is sort of, that's the perfect thing about music, isn't it? And that, you know, it is both so personal and so universal that you almost don't need the details. You're in an unspoken way, you're sharing anything, and that's really that is the greatest thing that has probably ever come out of playing music for me, is just the idea that there's people that have been somehow drawn to the same thing that I am, not drawn to me or drawn to what I'm doing, but drawn to the same thing that I am, that, you know, we're all doing a part in it and making it exist.
Well, Peter, I think that is the perfect place to leave it. But thanks very much for taking the time to have a chat today. I really appreciate it.
Sure, no problem.
And this is Beerjacket and Fool.